The smell of smoke and oil filled the cold air as Kyle walked through the alley of the mining colony. His boots splashed through dirty puddles while shadows shifted around him. The night was quiet, too quiet for a place known for crime and chaos. Kyle kept one hand near his sidearm, watching every corner as he passed broken crates and scrap piles. But something made him stop. He heard a sound, soft and trembling, like someone trying not to cry. He turned his head and listened. It was again a whisper, weak and full of fear. It came from behind a wall of old cargo units. He moved closer and slowly peeked behind the crates. What he saw froze him in place. Girl, small and thin, with purple-blue skin and glowing silver eyes, was sitting on the cold ground. Chains were wrapped around her wrists and ankles, cutting into her skin. Her body shook from cold and fear. Clothes were dirty and torn, barely covering her. Her long white hair was tangled and full of dust. She looked up at him, eyes wide with panic, and whispered, "And touch me, human." "I'm too dirty," but even as she said that, her hand reached forward. It touched his boot, then wrapped weakly around his ankle. She didn't want him to leave. Kyle slowly knelt down, careful not to scare her. He saw bruises on her arms, fresh cuts across her back. Someone had hurt her badly. He spoke gently, "I won't hurt you, I promise." "I'm just here to help." The girl didn't speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Kyle checked the chain lock and saw it was rusted but strong. He reached into his belt and pulled out a small plasma cutter. She flinched at the light but didn't. Let go of him in minutes. He cut through the chains. She fell forward, weak and barely conscious. He caught her in his arms. Her body was cold like ice. She tried to pull away again, whispering, "Jim dirty. Don't carry me, ba." Kyle lifted her gently and wrapped her in his coat. "Too, not dirty. You're just cold and tired." She didn't reply, but her fingers curled into his coat and she held on. Tight. Kyle carried her through the alley, careful to avoid patrols and cameras. The colony was not kind to slaves or runaways. If someone saw her with him, they might report him or worse. He moved fast and reached his small cargo ship parked in the shadows. Inside, the ship was warm, filled with tools and supplies. He laid her on a cot in the corner and covered her with a thick blanket. She looked around like a scared animal, eyes darting to every sound. Kyle knelt beside her and placed a cup of warm broth in her hands. She sniffed it, then drank slowly. "What's your name?" She stayed quiet. "Where are you from?" No answer. He didn't push her, sat nearby and watched her, making sure she felt safe. After a while, she looked at him again and whispered, "Why, did you help me because no one else did?" She blinked, and for the first time, a tear ran down her cheek. She wiped it quickly like it was something she wasn't allowed to show. "Am not worth helping." Kyle shook his head. "That's not true. You're alive. That's enough for no's." She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and curled up. Her voice came again, soft and broken. "They said I was property. They used me, hurt me, left me to rot." Kyle clenched his fists, but he stayed calm. For her, he didn't ask more questions, just sat with her, silent and steady. "You can rest now," he said. "You're safe here." She didn't believe him yet. Her body still shook. But she didn't let go of his coat. Even as she closed her eyes and slipped into sleep, her fingers stayed wrapped around the fabric, holding it like a lifeline. And Kyle knew then this was not just a rescue. This was the start of something deeper. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story. But he knew one thing: he wasn't going to leave her behind. Not now, not ever. Asterisk. The ship shook with a loud thud, and Kyle's hand shot to the controls. Outside, workers passed by, laughing and shouting as if nothing had happened. But inside, in the back of his cargo ship, something fragile was trying to breathe behind stacks of sealed containers. Under an old tarp, she lay curled up, gripping the corner of a blanket like it was her only shield. The alien girl he saved was hiding again, hiding from the world, hiding from voices that still echoed in her head. Kyle opened the door slowly. He didn't say anything. He knew loud words scared her. She peeked out from under the tarp with tired eyes. She didn't speak, but her lips moved slightly, trying to form his name. He placed a soft piece of fruit on the metal crate beside her and backed away. She looked at the fruit, sniffed it like a wild animal, then slowly took it. Her thin fingers trembled. "Dude, don't have to be scared," Kyle said gently. "No one can hurt you." Here she gave a small nod, but kept looking around the room. Her eyes never stopped moving. She didn't trust this place. She didn't trust the silence. Trust had been broken too many times. Kyle turned to leave her alone, but she suddenly sat up and grabbed his sleeve. "Don't go out there," she whispered. "Why no Thier? Looking for me. The ones in black suits? They tracked me before. They'll find me." Gentle knelt beside her and spoke with calm strength. "They come. They'll have to go through mesh." Stared at him like she didn't understand what that meant. No one had ever said those words for her before. Later, when the ship was flying high above the colony, Kyle returned to the cargo bay. She had fallen asleep sitting up, her head against the wall, arms still wrapped around her knees. Even in sleep, she looked like she was bracing for a hit. Kyle sat nearby and kept watch. Hours passed. She finally stirred and opened her eyes. This time, she didn't flinch when she saw him. Her voice came out low. "Yer, not selling Manoyer, not giving me away, no." She looked down, fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. "Then why are you keeping me?" "Because I want you to be free." She didn't speak again. But her hand slowly moved toward his. She didn't grab it. She just let it rest near his hand like she was testing him. Kyle didn't move. Shh. He let her choose, and when she finally touched his fingers, she didn't let go for the first time. She chose to stay that night. Kyle cleaned the small med station on the ship. He returned to the cargo bay with a warm cloth and a soft bottle of water. She looked at the cloth and backed away slightly. "It's just for the cuts," he said. Nothing else. She hesitated and gave a tiny nod. He sat near her, cleaned the bruises on her arms, her knees, her face. She didn't cry. She didn't wince. She just watched him the whole time. Like she was studying how a human could be so quiet and gentle. Kyle spoke softly. "While he worked there was a girl like you on Earth once. She escaped a place full of darkness. She didn't trust anyone either, but someone helped her. And she grew strong. What happened to her? She became a hero. She saved others who were trapped like she was. Do you think I could be like hers?" One day she lowered her eyes and held onto the blanket again. Maybe one day. The next morning, Kyle was checking ship systems when a red light blinked on his screen. Someone had scanned the ship. Someone was looking for something, or someone. Kyle rushed to the back. The girl was still there, sitting against the wall. He didn't want to scare her, but he needed her to move. "Get up. We have to hide you again, yes." Right now, he grabbed a metal panel near the engine room and pulled it open. Behind it was a small, hidden space, just big enough for her to fit. She crawled inside without a word and curled up. Kyle sealed the panel just as a ship knocked on his dock bay. A security bot entered, scanning with glowing red eyes. "Routine search." It said fine. Kyle replied calmly, "You won't find anything illegal." Here the bot checked every corner, then moved to the cargo bay. Kyle's heart raced as it scanned the container. Scan complete. No target detected. Proceed. The bot left as soon as the ship was clear. Kyle returned to the panel and opened it. She was still inside, her arm shaking. He helped her out gently. "They didn't find you? You're safe." She didn't speak. She just wrapped her arms around his waist and held on. That was the moment Kyle knew she didn't just want safety. She wanted someone who wouldn't let go. The alarm rang at the worst time. Kyle just stepped off the ship to buy spare power cells when the docking station flashed a red warning. Unauthorized access. His heart dropped. Pushed past a line of merchants and sprinted back, but it was already too late. The cargo ramp was open. Something had forced its way inside. He didn't wait for backup. He pulled out his stun pistol and rushed in, shouting. Lerno answered. The boxes were scattered. The panel he had hidden her in was ripped out. Wires sparked. His blanket was shredded on the floor. His chest tightened as he moved deeper into the ship. Then he heard it metal clanging in the back room. Screaming, kicked the door open inside. Two tall men in black armor were dragging Lura by her arms. Her feet scraped the floor. She was kicking, biting, thrashing. She saw Kyle and screamed his name. It was the first time she ever said it out loud. Kyle fired without thinking. One blast hit the first man in the shoulder. crashed into the wall. The second turned and raised a shock stick, but Lura twisted and slammed her head into his chest. That gave Kyle just enough time to shoot him too. Both men were down. Kyle dropped his weapon and ran to Lura. She was gasping, her knees giving out. He caught her before she fell. "They found me," she whispered. "They found me." He held her tight, breathing hard. "Not for long. We're leaving." She shook her head. "They'll keep coming. They'll always come." Kyle helped her up and led her to the front of the ship. He slammed his hand on the controls and launched into space. The ship groaned but lifted. Below, the colony lights shrank fast. Kyle flew toward a distant nebula where tracking signals often failed. Laura sat in the co-pilot's seat, shaking, her eyes fixed on the stars. Blood ran from her lip. "They branded me," she said. "Areas ago." "That's how they track me." Kyle turned to her. "Where is it?" "Lower back." He reached into the medical drawer and pulled out a scan tool. She didn't flinch this time. She turned slightly and showed him the scar. A metal chip blinked under her skin, glowing faint blue. He stared at it for a second. "Do you want it gone?" Her voice broke. "Please." Kyle nodded and worked fast. The tool hissed. As it cut around the chip, she gritted her teeth but didn't cry. When the chip fell into the tray, she sighed like a weight had dropped off her back. "They can't track you anymore," Kyle said, "but they know your ship. Will change it. Paint, tags, everything. I'll make sure of it." She looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone has to." Lura leaned back in the chair and covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from something else. Relief. After a long silence, she whispered, "When I was caught, I tried to run. I kept running. But one day I stopped. I thought, maybe if I died, it would finally end." She turned her face to him, "But then you came. You found me." Kyle stared at her for a moment. "You don't have to run anymore." They flew in silence for hours until they reached a small moon with a hidden outpost. Kyle landed the ship and began changing its outer shell. New paint, new plates, even a false signature beacon. Laura helped where she could. She still moved slow, but her eyes were clearer. She didn't flinch as much. She even laughed once when the paint bucket tipped over his foot, but the peace didn't last long that night. Kyle picked up a signal. A coded message bouncing between patrol drones. Her name was in it. Her face too. "Wanted. Captured or killed." Kyle showed it to her. "You still want to stay with Mesh?" Didn't look away. "I not leaving." Not after everything." He nodded. "Then we fight if we have two." Her fingers touched his arm. "We fight together." That was the moment everything changed. She wasn't just hiding anymore. She wasn't just surviving. She was choosing to live with him by his side, and Kyle knew that whatever storm was coming, she wouldn't let go of his hand. Not this time. The moment Lura stepped into the washroom, she froze. Steam curled from the old metal shower head. The light above flickered, casting soft glows across the tiles. The walls were stained, the mirror cracked, but the water was warm and clean. Kyle waited outside, his back turned, giving her space. She stood still, her toes pressed against the edge of the mat. Eyes locked on the running water. She hadn't bathed in months. Her fingers trembled as she touched the edge of her shirt. She looked at her hands first. Scars. Dirt under her nails. Her palms were cracked and dry. She pulled her shirt off slowly, like it hurt to take off something so stuck to her skin. Then she stepped under the stream. The water hit her like fire. It's not from heat, but from memory. Her legs gave out. She dropped to her knees, hands gripping the sides of the drain. The water washed over her back, over the bruises, the cuts, the reminders of chains. She began scrubbing, softly at first, then harder. She grabbed the soap Kyle had left and rubbed until her skin turned red. She kept scrubbing like she wanted to erase herself outside. Kyle heard it, a muffled cry. Then the sound of something falling. He didn't wait. He pushed open the door. Lura was on the floor, curled up under the water, arms over her head, whispering words too broken to understand. The soap lay beside her, slipping across the wet tiles. Kyle knelt beside her, but didn't touch her. Broke she was, shaking, crying, saying the same thing over and over. "Dirty. I'm still dirty." Kyle placed a towel on her shoulder. Lura, look at Meshdidnio, read not dirty. You're hurt. That's different. She looked up, her eyes wide, her voice barely a whisper. Why? Do you keep helping me because you deserve it? She shook her head. Don, you do. You're still here. You're still fighting. That means something. She sat up, still shaking. He handed her the towel and turned away. She wrapped herself slowly, quietly. Then something happened that caught Kyle off guard. She stood up and took a step forward. Her bare feet splashed against the floor. She reached for him. Her hand, now clean, but still trembling, touched his arm. Didn't. Leave me alone again. He nodded without turning. Won't. She leaned against his back. Not for anything more than warmth, trust. She was still learning what safety felt like. They walked back to the room together. Kyle gave her his blanket. She sat in the corner, wrapped like a cocoon, her eyes softer than before that night. She asked him questions. Why did you come to the mines? How long have you been flying? Do you miss Earth? Kyle answered everything. He talked about his little farm back home, about the stars he chased, about the people he lost. He didn't hold anything back. Laura listened closely, her head resting against the wall. She didn't speak for a while after that. But then she said something small. I had a sister once. She was younger. They took her first. Kyle didn't ask what happened next. He knew the silence said enough. I still dream about her, Laura whispered. Sometimes she tells me to keep going. Then you should, Kyle said. For her, for you. Laura looked at him. In that moment, something changed. Her eyes didn't hold fear anymore. They held fire. The first person who didn't treat me like I was trash. That's because you're not. She smiled. Just a little. Kyle stood and headed toward the control room, but before he could leave, she called his name. He turned. She was sitting up now, her arms still wrapped in the blanket. Thank you for waiting. For not leaving. He nodded. Any time that night. Kyle watched the stars alone at the front deck, but he didn't feel alone. Not anymore. Behind him, in the back corner of the ship, a girl once left in chains was sleeping in pea sand just before her. Eyes closed, her hand reached out and found the blanket he gave her. She held it close, not because she needed warmth, but because it smelled like someone who stayed. She stared at the stars like they were calling her, sitting at the edge of the ship's open deck. Wrapped in a soft gray blanket, the alien girl watched the galaxy flow by through the safety glass. Her knees were drawn to her chest, her arms circled them tight. She looked calm, but inside something heavy was moving. Kyle walked in, carrying 2 warm cups. He handed her one without a word. She took it with quiet fingers and held it close. They sat together in silence. The hum of the ship filled the space between them. Then she spoke.
Low.
And unsure. Someone loses their name? Are they still a person? Kyle turned to her. You didn't lose your name? You're just remembering it again. She closed her eyes. I tried to. Forget it. They screamed it when they hurt me. They turned it into something painful. I thought if I erased it, I could erase what happened. Kyle waited, but now I hear it in my head again. I see her face. My sister's. She used to call me by ether. Hands shook around the cup. She was the last one who said it with love. Kyle didn't push. He waited. She opened her mouth, paused, then said softly, Lure. That's my name. It was the first time she said it without fear. Kyle nodded slowly. Lura. It's a good name. She looked at him. You really think Soyuz? It suits you. She looked away, hiding a small smile behind her cup. He didn't say anything more. He just sat beside her while the stars turned around them later. While Kyle worked on engine repairs, Laura walked into the workshop. Her hair was brushed. For the first time, her steps were quiet but steady. She picked up a small tool and started helping. You don't have to. Kyle said, I want to. I want to learn. I can't keep hiding forever. Kyle taught her how to align the cables, check the heat, coils, and clean the inner ducts. She learned fast. Her hands were steady, her mind sharp that night, as the ship hovered near a small supply moon. Lura stepped into the main room holding something. It was a shirt. Kyle's shirt. She had patched a hole in it too. Fixed this. She nodded. You help me. I help you, she paused, then added, that's how people work together. Right, he smiled right, but their quiet peace was short. A message flashed on Kyle's console. It was encrypted, but not enough to hide its meaning. A bounty had been placed again. Higher. This time, more eyes would come. Laura saw the screen. Not worth all this trouble. Kyle stood and looked at her directly. Yes, you are. You're alive. You're healing. That matters. She walked to the window and looked out again. When I was locked up, I stopped believing I was real. Like I was just something to be owned. But now, she turned back to him. Now I feel the air. I feel my own name. That means I'm still here, Kyle. Noted yes. You, Archie, stepped closer. Unsure, but brave-oned. When I'm strong enough, I'll help others like me. No one should feel like they're too dirty to be touched. Her voice was quiet but steady. Her eyes didn't shake. Kyle saw something powerful growing inside her. Wasn't the same girl he found in the Ally. She was becoming someone else, someone free. Asterisk. The ground exploded behind them. Dust flew into the sky as metal claws tore through the sand. Kyle grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her forward. Her feet slipped, but she didn't fall. Her breath was heavy, her legs shaking, but she kept running. They had been found. The bounty mechs were faster than expected. Their red eyes glowed through the storm. Blades whirred from their arms. They weren't made to capture. They were made to end. Kyle pushed open the hatch of an old mining shelter and dragged Laura inside. He slammed the door shut and threw the lock. One more landed outside, its body crashing through the roof. Sparks flew. Laura ducked behind a crate. Kyle fired a burst from his rifle and hit its eye. The mech stumbled, then dropped. Smoke rose from its joints. Laura stood slowly, coughing. How did they find us? Kyle checked his scanner. They traced the chip. Again. The old one I removed. That's impossible. He looked at her. Did they put a second one in her face? Went pale, maybe. I don't know. Kyle moved fast. He scanned her again, full body this time. Signal pinged from deep inside her left shoulder. He cursed and grabbed the med tool. Don't have time. I'm taking it out. No, she nodded without fear. Doe sliced carefully. Blood ran down her arm, but she didn't flinch. The chip came loose, crushed it under his boot. Then he wiped her arm clean and wrapped it. The sound of more machines echoed outside. They were surrounding the building. Kyle ran to the back of the shelter and opened a maintenance tunnel. Come on. We go down and out through the hills. Lure looked toward the door. What if they catch us? They won't. I won't let them. She hesitated for just one breath. Then she grabbed his hand and followed inside the tunnel. It was dark and narrow. Pipes lined the walls. Their footsteps echoed Laura's voice. Kamla used to live in tunnels like this. Back when I escaped the first time, I slept in corners. I didn't talk to anyone. I thought I'd die there. Kyle looked at Urbichu. Didn't met his eyes. No. I didn't. He climbed a rusted ladder and burst out into the open air. The desert stretched before them. Far in the distance, lights flickered from a decommissioned refinery that way. Kyle pointed. If we reach that place, we can signal help. My friend has a stealth ship hidden there. Laura ran beside him, no longer holding back. Her steps grew stronger, her eyes sharper. The sun began to rise. Painting the sky in deep red behind them, the mechs followed. 3 of them now. It's faster than before. One raised a cannon and fired. The shot hit a dune, throwing sand into their faces. Laura stumbled, but didn't stop. She screamed his name. Kyle turned and shot back. 1 mech fell. The other 2 kept coming. Laura grabbed a flare stick from his pack and lit it. The bright beam blinded the mechs just long enough for them to cross a broken bridge. Once across, Kyle turned and blew the bridge behind them with a remote charge. The fire rose high. The mechs stopped at the edge. Kyle and Laura collapsed inside the refinery ruins. Their clothes were torn, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt, but they were alive. Laura lay beside him, chest rising and falling fast. She looked up at the broken ceiling. We ran through fire. Kyle noted. We did. You didn't. Like Guy told you I wouldn't. Smiled through the pain. I believed you this time. He sat up and placed a beacon on the wall. Soft pulse blinked. Help was coming. Laura touched her shoulder. Hurts? I know. But it's over. No. She leaned her head against his arm. Back then, when I was in that alley, I had given up. I thought if no one touched me again, I'd disappear, but you touched my hand. You pulled me back." Kyle looked down at her, seeing not a girl in chains anymore, but a warrior who had survived what should have ended her, and he knew she didn't need saving anymore. She needed someone to stand beside her, not in front, not behind, but right there together. She was the one who walked ahead this time. The ruined refinery was quiet now. The fire had cooled. The smoke had cleared. The sky above shimmered with the soft blue of early dawn. Laura stepped through the broken gate, her hands steady, her steps strong. Kyle followed behind her, limping slightly, his shoulder bandaged from the last fight. But he smiled because she wasn't the same girl anymore. She didn't look back to check if he was still there. She knew he was. A small ship landed on the sand beside them. Sides were painted dark gray. No symbols, no tags, hidden and fast.
Oh.
Like Kyle had promised, the ramp lowered and a man stepped out, nodding to Kyle's tough crowd. "You're bringing home. She's tougher than she looks." The man raised a brow that Salura spoke before Kyle could answer him. "Laura, and I'm not property. I'm not cargo. I'm free." The man smiled. "Well then, welcome aboard." They stepped onto the ship together inside. Laura sat beside the window and looked out at the burning refinery. One last time, everything she used to be had ended in that fire. Every scar, every chin, every voice that told her she was worthless, all of it had melted away. Kyle sat across from her and leaned back. "You didn't know." "We did." I gave a tired grin. "So what now?" She looked at him, her face calmed. "Now I learn how to live in you." Kyle shrugged. "Maybe I rest for a while. Maybe I just sit still. I've been moving for too long." Then sit with Mesh. Reached out, not to be saved, not to be held, but to hold him back this time. She was the one who offered her hand. First, Kyle took it without a word. She smiled. "You don't have to worry anymore about what about me." Letting go, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "Because now, I know who I am. Not the girl in the chain. See him. Not the one hiding in the dark. The one who walked through fire and came out holding your hand." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." He rested his head against hers. "You're not just seen now, you're shining." The ship rose into the sky far below. The bounty hunters found only ruins, no trail, no signal, no girl. She was gone, but not lost. She was found. Laura opened her eyes as the stars came into view. She held Kyle's hand tight, not out of furnet because she needed saving, but because she had chosen to never walk alone again. And for the first time in her life, she felt clean, not because water had touched her skin, but because love had touched her soul and it never let go.